I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to call this story The Rabbit Hole. Alice was listening to her sister read a book to her, and all of a sudden she saw this white rabbit with a watch on his wrist. He was looking at that watch on his wrist and shaking his head. I kept saying, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. And he ran on ahead. Alice followed not far behind. And she looked down below her, and all at once she was falling. She kept falling and falling and falling, and it just seemed like there was nothing there to catch her. It was a deep, deep hole, dark. She couldn't see anything around her till she landed. There was a stand just straight over across from her. Had a lamp on it, and the lamp lit up the room. It looked like a regular room with pictures and something on the table. So Alice walked across the checkered black and white tile over to the table, and she picked up a note and a bottle. It didn't say what was in the bottle or what it would do. It just said, drink me. So she drank it. All at once, Alice got very, very tiny. She didn't know what to do. Well, the thing was, she was suddenly very scared, and she couldn't reach the top of the table. She was so tiny. She climbed up on the leg and stood there at the post of the table and started crying. She cried enough tears to fill an ocean, and pretty soon the tears filled the room. Alice started floating, and then she found a bottle to float on. She floated on the bottle through the hole of the door where the knob was, the keyhole. Alice had no key to open the door, but she floated through the keyhole into the next room. She found a wilderness. She walked through that wilderness, and she could see a tree. She couldn't see the branches. All she could see were the leaves. And it seemed like that tree went on and on and on. It was so tall, so much taller than her. She took a piece of a mushroom after she met the caterpillar, and it made her taller. And all at once she could see how many branches were on that tree. She could see all the branches. It surprised her. One branch said psychological warfare. Another branch said technology attack. Another branch said CERN attack. Another branch said attack Mother Nature. All the branches said something having to do with what the world was doing around her. She could not believe how big that tree was and how well hidden the branches were. It seemed like she climbed on one branch after another to find her way out of the forest, but she couldn't, no matter how hard she tried. And finally, she went to this house through the forest. She found her way to a house, a small house. She found a cookie in the house, and it said, eat me. The note did. So she ate the cookie. She got bigger than the house, and so all of a sudden she was big enough that she walked right into this maze. And she met the Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts played a game with her. And all at once, the Queen of Hearts didn't like the way she was playing the game, so she said, "Off with her head." Alice looked at the Queen of Hearts all at once, and she took off running, scared. And finally, she made her way home. Alice suddenly knew the difference between a rabbit hole and life. Alice suddenly realized what was real and what wasn't. From what she just dreamed, it told her that the world is only as big as what you think it is. That the world is only as wrong as what you think it is. The only way you change your world is to change your mind, to change your thinking. You have to find your way out of the rabbit hole. And you have to know what direction you're going and how you're going to get there. My son was going to run away once. I told him, I said, "Honey, you have to know where you're going if you're going to run away." He said, "You're right." He'd never thought of that. He suddenly realized I was right. All at once, his mom made sense to him. And life around him started making sense. Because I was explaining what really was real. I wasn't looking at the glass half full. I wasn't looking at the glass half empty. I was looking at the glass with the water, knowing that it was water. That's how you have to look at this world. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed by thoughts. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed by stuff that you know you cannot change. The only person you can change is yourself. The only mind you can change is your own. Looking inside yourself is where you find the answer. And Alice found that out. It didn't matter how tall, how fat, how small. It didn't matter what she looked like. What mattered was what was inside her. And she realized that. That was the only way she could stay out of the rabbit hole.